Yeah, right. That's true.
If you go to the library, you'll see the school that was there before.
I have that too.
That's the school that was there
Wait, the
before,
school
right
is up
there.
here someplace.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is.
Good evening, everyone. Would you please join us in a salute to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2013 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2012, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Brownlee? Mrs. Larrier?
Here.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public in any meeting, and whereas desire of this governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the little delay. This evening, we have 6 ordinances on final passage. For each of those, I will ask if there's anyone who would like to speak on the particular ordinance. We'll have a public hearing. At that point, we'll close the public hearing. We'll have a discussion among the Township Committee members, and then we'll have a roll call vote. Those ordinances are a change in the Jitney parking combination pass for 2014, eliminating the sunset provision for the Springfield Avenue Special Improvement District, changing the times that construction work is permitted within Maplewood on weekends, will be an ordinance to cancel $898,000 in bond and other proceeds not needed for their original purposes, and transfer that to the capital fund surplus. We're going to be having an ordinance on final that will amend the fees in the engineering department, and lastly, an ordinance creating a 4-way stop at Essex Avenue and South 4th Street. We have a new ordinance in which we will change our rental registration ordinance. Then we have 5 discussion items: 60 Woodland Road, the request for proposals. We'll be discussing residential fences, 4 feet versus 6 feet. We'll be recognizing the receipt of the best practices inventory that we submitted to the state. Mr. Brownlee is unable to be here this evening due to illness, but we'll have 2 discussion items that Mr. Manning will bring up. One is security cameras at Maple Crest Park, and the other is a regional communications grant application for the fire department. We'll have our consent agenda, public comment, our second public comment. The first one will be right after our Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. And the consent agenda, we have, what do we have here? Let's see. We're canceling some guarantees that were required for some construction projects because they've met their requirements. We have bills and vouchers we'll be approving. We'll be establishing rates for off-duty Maplewood police officers. We'll be awarding a contract for the redevelopment plan for the former PSE&G site. And then we have approval of the October 1st open session and closed session meeting minutes. Then we have reports from the administrative reports from elected officials, and then we will adjourn. So that's our rundown tonight. Just wanted to announce it is approximately 20 minutes to 8, and until 9 p.m. tonight, Anyone who is not registered to vote but would like to vote in the November 5th general election, you can come to Town Hall. We will be doing voter registration until 9 p.m. tonight. If you did not register, you will not be able to vote in tomorrow's election. But if you are registered, we want to remind you that tomorrow is an election day. It's a special Senate election for the U.S. Senator to replace Senator Frank Lautenberg, who passed away earlier this year. So it's a little strange to have an election on a Wednesday, but that will be tomorrow. You go to your normal polling sites, and it's normal from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So just like a regular election day, it's just on a Wednesday, and there's only one question on the ballot, and that'll be who will be New Jersey's U.S. Senator going forward. Well, at least until next year, and then there's another election, but this is to fill the unexpired term of Senator Lautenberg. And then I have a Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation, which I'll read. And before I read this, I just want to say that my mother died of breast cancer, and it was a very difficult time for all of us. And honestly, she did not do what she should have done as far as checking herself and going to the doctor and taking all the cues that were necessary to deal with this illness. It's a devastating illness. It's spread throughout her whole body, and by the time we were able to do something, it just was too late, and she was gone in the matter of 3 weeks. So I would urge everyone here, all the women in town, all the women who you guys out there love, to urge them, your moms and your sisters and your wives, your daughters, to go get breast cancer, do self-checks and go get the mammograms and other checks that are necessary. Having gone through it with a loved one, it's a very, very difficult illness. So I know we kind of take it for granted, and we see everything pink, even the football players wearing pink equipment. But it is important that we keep hammering home the message of how important it is to get checked. Whereas October 2013 is the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and October 18th is National Mammography Day, and whereas breast cancer is the most common cancer among women in the United States, except for lung cancer, and whereas in 2013 an estimated 226,970 new cases of invasive breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in women in the U.S., and it's projected that there'll be 39,510 breast cancer deaths. And while breast cancer in men is rare, it does happen with an estimated 2,200 new cases of breast cancer expected to be diagnosed in men in 2013. Death rates from breast cancer have been declining, and these decreases are thought to be the result of treatment advances, earlier detection through screening, and increased awareness and mammography. Increased awareness and mammography is the best available method of detecting breast changes that may be cancerous. Whereas pink ribbons have been the symbol of the fight against breast cancer since 1993, and here locally we have pink ribbons around. We have a pink stripe on Springfield Avenue year after year. Therefore, I, Victor DeLuca, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, on behalf of the Township Committee, do hereby proclaim October 2013 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month and October 18th, 2013 as Mammography Day in the Township of Maplewood, and call upon all citizens, private businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other interested groups to join in the activities that will increase their awareness and understanding of breast cancer and what they can do to prevent and control breast cancer, and urge Maplewood to show support by going pink. Thank you. We now will move to our first public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee?
Good evening, Mayor DeLuca, members of the Township Committee. For the record, I'm Deborah Collins, the Director of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action for Essex County. I'm also the county's liaison to the Township of Maplewood. Here are this evening's announcements. Next Tuesday, October 22nd, the County Executive, Board of Chosen Freeholders, and the Essex County Office of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action will present an event called the General Contractors. The purpose is to promote subcontracting opportunities for small, woman-owned, minority, and LGBTQ-owned businesses by networking with general and prime contractors. We have already received confirmation from half a dozen contractors who currently have contracts with the County of Essex that they will be available for this first ever event, which will take place at McClune's Boathouse Restaurant. While admission is free, registration is required. We're going to cap registration at about 50. We have about 42 at this time. If anyone is interested in attending, please contact our office at 973-621-2011. On Friday, October 25th, the County Executive, the Board of Chosen Freeholders, and the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department, in conjunction with the Citizens Committee of the Essex County Presby Memorial Iris Gardens in Montclair, invite you to Gardens Aglow, artfully carved pumpkins in one large brilliant display. That's from 6 to 9. The rain date is October 26th. The Presby Memorial Iris Gardens, if the public is not aware of it, you can find it at 474 Upper Mountain Avenue, Upper Montclair. For more information, call 973-239-2465. There are a number of zoo special events taking place this fall. The next one takes place on Friday, October 25th from 6 to 9 p.m. It's called Spooky Zoo. Celebrate this ghoulish time of year by visiting the Turtleback Zoo at night. Registration and payment must be received prior to the event. It's $3 per member, $5 per non-member, and space is limited. And on Halloween, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., come trick-or-treating at the zoo with 30 candy stations throughout the grounds. Everyone is sure to have a quote-unquote sweet time. For more information, call 973-731-5800. And on Saturday, October 26th, Strut Your Mutt, our famous Halloween costume contest and parade for dog owners. One will take place at the Essex County Brookdale Dog Park, Grove Street, Montclair. Registration is at 9:15 a.m. The parade begins at 10 a.m. Entry is free. There will be a second parade at the Essex County South Mountain Dog Park, Crest Drive, Maplewood/Milburn. Registration 1:15 p.m. Parade 2 p.m. There will be prizes as well. The number to call is 973-268-3500. Let's see, last but not least, the County Executive, Board of Chosen Freeholders, and the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs invite you to see Artists at Work at the Essex County Riker Hill Art Park. That's Saturday and Sunday, November 2nd and 3rd, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free at 284 Buford Avenue, Livingston, New Jersey. For more information, call 973-268-3500. And again, I just want to urge the public to support our Meet the General Contractors event. We have never had an event like this before. It is truly groundbreaking that they would, again, the contractors would come out, meet not only with our subcontractors, but with journeymen, laborers who are in fact in the union. So we are expecting quite an event. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Questions for Ms. Collins? By the way, I was here last week for the freeholder meeting, the start of it, and heard some of your report. You're very busy and very successful, so congratulations on your work. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee?
Good evening. My name is Julie Martini, and I live at 12 Briarcliff Court. I believe you guys have an answer for me.
Mr. Manning?
Sorry about that. Yes, in effective the 1st of October 2013,
Excuse me, Mr. Manning, just so everyone, you asked about values at the station house and taxes paid.
Assessments, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
assessments, and so that's the information that we have. So anybody watching, when you hear Mr. Manning read off these numbers, those are the numbers that we have.
Okay.
Right. In the first day of October 2013, it was certified that 2012 admitted assessments from 125 Donnell Road was $398,333, which resulted in an omitted tax, which is being collected of $12,690.
That's just for this year?
That's just for the land,
For 2012.
2012, right.
Excuse me, Mr. Manning, could you repeat that first number? That was 398,000?
Yeah, right, and I don't have the heading, but it's $398,333.
And that's,
That's
That's the value of the land,
the land, just the
is
land.
that the assessment?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that's for a period of time, a half, for 2012, when it was sold and became someone else's property. Prior to that, it was exempt from any taxes, so it had no value. It had a value, but it wasn't taxable, and it had less of a value because it was not.
Yeah, it was owned by the town.
Town.
So it didn't pay any taxes.
Yes, of
And
course.
so once we sold the property, and I think we
Right.
sold it somewhere in the vicinity of the first quarter of the year, then the added assessment was $398,333.
I'm sorry I didn't print it out, but the assessment on the Essex County tax records listed the assessment for the land alone of over $1 million, which makes sense, right? It was $1,175,000.
But this is for a partial part of the year. It's not for the whole year.
Okay, and the improvements?
The
No, there were no
improvements,
improvements in 2012.
No improvements?
no
in
improvement in
2012.
2012. Right.
What will the assessment be in 2013?
Well, he's got information for
Well,
2013.
in 2013, and this is for a 6-month period, it's prorated added assessment for 2013. It had a, hold on just a second, let me, I have notes all over here.
That's a tax bill.
Wait a minute, just one second, Joe. 96 for 6 months. So it had you know what, I don't have the exact value for the land. I have the taxes. I had 2 different reports printed out. But in 2000, prorated added assessment for 2013, they paid 200 and in total I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. 2013, the total tax on the property was $256,454.05, and then it goes off the page. The printer didn't do it. So that's how much they pay in taxes for 2013. $256,454.
$1,000 property taxes for 6 months?
Yes, for
So
six-
that means for an entire
No,
year?
No.
No, that's for the
That's for the year.
Pardon? Yeah, that's for the
year.
entire year.
Oh, that's for the entire year?
Yes.
If it's $3.15 per $100...
You know what, we're not gonna do this.
I'm not gonna be able to
If
do it in
you,
my
if
head.
you want further information, then I would suggest you sit down, or you can go to the assessor's office and you
I
can
know,
get the
yes.
information. That would be the best way, because the spreadsheets we have here are from there. And if you still want to check on the veracity of these numbers, then I would suggest you go to the assessor and you can
Mr.
sit down,
Galante.
they can run the numbers, you can maybe ask a specific question and they can, hit the number and you can get that information.
Okay.
And they are available every Wednesday evening until 7?
And open during the day, too.
Yeah. You had the land appraised before you sold it. In other words, you followed very much the same process for Station House as you're going to be following for the post office. So did you have the land appraised before you started the process? Do you recall what it was appraised for?
Absolutely. We're required by law.
Okay. Do you recall what the appraisal was?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
I'm just trying to ascertain whether, I'm trying to figure out whether or not this was a good deal for the
Well,
town.
you know what, I appreciate your honesty, and I think that's where we ought to start. If you think it's a good deal or not, and I think that's a very fair question. And I think you need to factor everything in here, that this was a sale of it. It was a sale with a building on it. You know that there was a sale price, and there were also contaminants in the building. So someone had to pay to clean that, and someone had to pay to demolish the building. So I think it's a fair question as to whether or not it's a fair price and a fair result, but I think you need to have all the factors in there. So there's two aspects. One is the process up to the sale of the property, and then that's an open book, that's all out there. And then the second is the assessment after it became privately owned, because before that it was publicly owned. So the information that we gave you earlier was the information that the assessor put on the books when the new owner took over, and then when there were certificate of occupancies issued, that's when the property tax starts to get paid. And that's a formula. So we can give you the information on what the sale was, what the back out number was for the remediation and the demolition of the building, and you can make a judgment as to whether or not it was a fair price.
So what would you say to me as to, how would you convince me that it was a good deal for the town?
It was a good deal for the town because we're getting taxes on a piece of property that we did not get taxes on. We're getting housing stock that we didn't have, that by evidence of who's moving in there is meeting the goals we have, and that's both downsizers and empty nesters, young professionals. And we got a building that was obsolete taken down and replaced with a building that's functioning. And right now, there's no tax abatement. That money is paying full taxes, and 25% goes to us, 57% goes to the school, and X amount goes to the county and what have you. So I think it's a pretty good deal.
And we couldn't go into the business of renting it ourselves and making all that money for ourselves rather than selling
No,
to
the
a
town
developer.
owning property and,
Well, we could have, but it seems a bad idea for the
You own
town.
property in this town.
no, but I don't think there's any evidence that we have built any property for private ownership
Private ownership.
or private renting.
What about affordable housing?
There are
The
affordable.
station house is not affordable.
No, there are. The part of the agreement is that there are four units that are affordable. And if you want that information, we can
No,
get
I'd
you,
talk to a real estate
we
agent.
can get you the rentals on that information. It's absolutely affordable.
And those apartments were rented before the
That's our policy, is that
market value.
10% affordable.
It's,
But-
still, you know, it's moot because it's still debatable.
You don't know the numbers.
No, I don't know the
So
numbers.
I think until you know the numbers, and then I think we can have that debate. I'd be glad to have that debate, because when you look at the numbers, I think you'll find that these numbers are done by a consultant that we hire, Community Grants and Planning, that does all the certification of our affordable housing in town. They also run our affordable housing rehab program, in which we fix up houses of people who are eligible by income. And there's a formula that's set forth by the state as far as income guidelines. I don't remember the exact number of people that applied for that housing, but all of them are, 700, I think. All of them are certified by this group, Community Grants and Planning, and then the rents are determined by fair market value rents in this region.
All rents.
You can look at those 4 units. I invite you to look at those 4
I
units.
looked at the other units. You
No,
know,
look at the 4 units.
$2,400, that's as expensive,
I would suggest to you that there's rentals there for $700 a month.
but only 4 of them.
Excuse me?
But only 4 of
10%.
them.
Yeah, that's what you need. That's what's required. This is a private developer building this. Now, this is not the town. The town made a contribution of the land of $35 a unit. But this is a unit that for 30 years will be affordable with income guidelines and price controls. So this is a contract that we have with a private developer to take a haircut on what he can get on income. So, yeah, 46 units are market and 4 were affordable.
Okay. Not great, but
Well, okay.
I'm going to move on to the post office building. Something really curious happened when I went back to the Essex County tax records. I discovered that Amy Gleicher disappeared, and the 156-160 Maplewood Avenue reverted to the town. That happened.
Mr. Desiderio?
I don't even understand it. I don't understand the question.
Okay, so when I was here 2 weeks ago, I was asking about the ownership of the building known as the post office site, and when I went online and looked at the tax records for Essex County, I discovered that the owner was listed as an Amy Gleicher of Livingston.
Okay.
I went back to print things out, and then I discovered that that's not true anymore. She's not in the records at all. What happened to her?
Well, you'd have to go to the Essex County Taxation Board and ask them, because they're their records. If you want to know about the ownership of the property, we can tell you that.
Okay,
We can't
so...
explain somebody else's records to you.
Okay, So
I
now,
don't understand.
the building has now reverted back to us?
No,
Not yet.
Not yet?
no.
November
9th.
November 9th.
Explain to me this arrangement. This arrangement is
I
like...
think we did last time. I'll do it again one more time,
Yeah,
okay?
because
Because, you know, some of this is, we're really spending a lot of time here, and I think you can ask your questions, and we can, some of this takes some research on our part, so we can get back to you like we did. But there used to be, that second mural over there is Rickleton's school. Nope, next one over. That was Rickleton School, and that's where the post office was. The Rickleton School was there, and that's where the post office is. In 1955, the town sold the property to, or entered into a lease with the post office. They entered into a lease with someone else to build the building, and that's the arrangement. And the post office has a land lease with us and another lease with is that right? And another lease with this private entity to build the building. In the 1950s, the post office operated that way. They did not own property. They worked out a deal with a private entity to build the buildings. So that was built by a private entity on land that we own, that we leased to them, and they had the right to enter into this third-party arrangement. That expires on November 9th, 2013. At that point, the land is always ours. The building reverts back to us also.
Okay, odd.
Actually, it's not. That's the way the post office ran all its operations. They didn't want to own property, and they didn't want to own buildings, and they didn't have to put any capital money in. So this was not odd at all. It was actually the way they did it.
They do own some land.
They own all of the edifices, the very old buildings that go back into the 30s, okay, and the 20s. Orange Post Office, for example.
Well, it really doesn't matter because they don't own this. We own the land.
But this was by no means the only deal that was structured like this back in those days.
The way they did business, it wasn't odd.
ASI, who did the reevaluation, did a commercial assessment for the post office, which they listed in 2012 as $963,000. And yet, from the Essex County, it was only listed at $696,000. At the $300,000 disconnect, I don't understand. Like that disconnect.
You're asking
on
what
my
the
copy.
assessment is currently. We'll get you that information.
But I have it here for 2013 from the Essex County Tax Boards.
We have to look into it. You're asking us a question. You're raising a potential discrepancy
It is
and
a
asking us.
discrepancy.
We don't know what those numbers are. We'll have to look at those numbers.
Okay. All right, and where are you in the post office process? You're interviewing the 8,
Correct.
okay. And at this point, is it too late to consider whether or not there might be some alternatives to that? I mean,
Yes.
if we made less than $1 million on the station house, I would really be worried about whether or not we're going to get a fair deal for the post office.
So is that, so you've arrived at your answer about the station house then, right? It's just, I'm inferring from your comments that $900,000, which by the way was put into 2 budget years, which prevented tax increases of any significance, and you're saying there's not, one didn't have an impact, so, well, okay, that's your opinion. I think we can get you the information on what the assessment is for the post office, and we're not looking to do anything other than what we're doing right, the process we're moving forward on.
Okay, all right. I'll be back. Thanks a
Okay,
lot.
thanks. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Seeing no one, we'll move to ordinances. We have an ordinance on final passage.
Mr. Mayor, item number 7, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2731-13. It's an ordinance to establish the fees for the Jitney Pass and the Jitney Parking Combination Pass for 2014. This ordinance will increase the Jitney Pass fee from $85 to $92 and the Jitney Parking Combination fee from $225 to $232 for 2014.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, Mr. Ryan, can we get a motion?
Chair, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
All right?
Yes. Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Thank you. We have another ordinance on final.
Item 8, ordinance number 2732-13 is an ordinance to eliminate the sunset provision regarding the Springfield Avenue Special Improvement District. This ordinance will eliminate the sunset provision as it applies to the Springfield Avenue Special Improvement District.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Mrs. Leventhal, I'm sorry, can we get a motion?
Mayor, move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
I'm very pleased to second.
Any discussion?
Glad to finally get this done.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Another ordinance on final.
Item 9, Mayor Ordinance Number 2733-13 is an ordinance to change the times that construction work is permitted within Maplewood. This ordinance will prohibit excavation, demolition, construction, repair, or alteration work from beginning before 8 o'clock a.m. on Saturdays and 11 o'clock a.m. on Sundays.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing, and Ms. Leventhal, can we get a motion?
Mayor, move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have another ordinance on final.
Item 10, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2734-13, ordinance of the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey, providing for the cancellation of $898,374.33 in bonds and other proceeds not needed for their original purposes, and to transfer $898,374.33 in bond and other proceeds to the capital fund surplus account for future capital projects.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, this ordinance is put in place here, or suggested to be put in place here by the Finance Committee. It's part of the regular cycle of closing out old projects that are completed but still have funds associated with them. Move the ordinance be adopted as a whole, and the clerk be directed to publish the same as passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Another ordinance on final?
Item 11, Mayor, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2735-13. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 123 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Fees. This ordinance will amend fees in the engineering department.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, will move forward. Mr. Ryan?
Chair, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole, and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. We have a final ordinance on final passage.
Yes, Mayor. Item number 12, ordinance number 2736-13. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will authorize the installation of stop signs at the intersection of Essex Avenue and South 4th Street.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Mr. Ryan?
Chair, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole, and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have an introduction of a new ordinance.
Item 13, introduction of new ordinance, Mayor, ordinance number 2737-13. It's an ordinance to modify the frequency of rental inspections and to amend Chapter 209 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Rental Properties. This ordinance will modify the frequency within which rental units must be inspected within the Township of Maplewood.
Ms. Leventhal?
First, I'd like to mention that this changes the frequency to every 2 years unless there's an outstanding violation or a complaint of a violation. Mr. Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange.
It's on introduction.
Sorry. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to the law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on November 4th.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
This is exactly as we have been discussing over the last few
That's
meetings
right.
and
Yep.
with the Code Enforcement Committee.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, item number 14, we have 5 discussion items. 60 Woodland Road, the RFP, request for proposals.
Yes, Mayor, we had asked our business administrator to develop a draft of a request for proposals to publish, to find a long-term partner to do business with at the Women's Club. We got some extensive comments from a member of the Township Committee who has some experience in the nonprofit grant writing and grant giving area. I asked that the discussion be delayed at the last meeting because I got the information fairly late and didn't have time to review it. It looks correct and complete, and I think that your comments should be incorporated in toto and used to draw up the final version of the RFP, and that we should move forward. I wouldn't change much of anything in this at all. I think it covers all of the things that we'd want to find out from anybody who's bidding, and when you contrast that or add that to the original work that Mr. Manning did, which discusses what we're currently doing in the building, what we discussed in brainstorming out of the Women's Club Task Force, I think that we've got all the information that we need to put together a solid RFP. So I'd like to recommend that we just go forward with it.
Ms. Leventhal?
I have a couple of questions, comments. Should we do this offline, or should I bring them up now?
Why don't you do it now?
Okay. I'm holding this document.
No.
Okay, then that answers my question.
This is the document, one that,
Okay.
second document.
Okay. I have that. All right, so on this document, my only question is whether or not at the end, where it's additional material to include, is there any need to put the political contribution? Yes, should
Okay
that
to
go
point.
in?
Part of the,
It certainly will be part of the contract.
Okay, so maybe they should have a heads up that,
That's fine.
Right.
There's certainly no harm in putting it in.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I would like to look at this, Mr. Manning, if you could take a look at these questions. I think it is actually dealt with in item 4, E, F, and G, but I'm not sure if it's explicit enough. I think there is confusion in the community right now as to who's responsible for taking requests for use of that building.
yes.
Because I don't think that the current managing organization is publicizing anything. And when I got the email today that talked about the work that was being done there, and just as an FYI, it showed 2, 4, 6, about 8 different functions. It doesn't have the breadth that I thought we would have. The range is not there. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I sent it to you, actually.
Okay, then you saw it. So you know what I'm talking about. It's
Yes.
It's very internal
Yes.
to the management company or management organization. So I think there has to be something here, not only about publicizing the things, but also how someone will reach out to the community to let them know that the facility is available.
Okay,
And I would put that in the RFP, and then I would also ask you to go to our current managing organization and ask them to do something along those lines to let people know how to contact them.
either way, if anyone's interested, you want to contact them at 6060 Woodland at Comcast.net.
So, Mr. Manning, do you have enough input from us to move forward with this?
Yes, I certainly do.
Okay.
Can you give us a ballpark estimate of when you think?
We will probably advertise it either a week from this Thursday, or
Great.
2 weeks from this Thursday. We'll try for next Thursday.
Great. Great, thanks, Chair. Mr. Manning, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, residential fences, 4 feet versus 6 feet. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. And we're going to have a interesting discussion here. We've received a October 7th memo from Mr. Mittermeier with some of his suggestions, and also sharing with us the ordinances from Millburn, South Orange, and West Orange, I believe, right?
Yes.
Right, those 3, okay. I'm sorry, Millburn, South Orange, and West Orange, okay. So, this has only reinforced my feeling that we ought to take a look at maybe some change to the ordinance. I think that, he talks about properties that are adjacent to schools, playgrounds, municipal facilities, New Jersey Transit lines, Board of Education facilities, the reservation, the country club, and also other uses which cause an owner to request a 6-foot-high fence. The other thing is that I happen to think that having a 6-foot fence in the back would not be that intrusive. I'm not sure about the sides, but certainly in the back of the property. So that would be my opinion. But I know we have some very strong opinions from some other folks about keeping it at 4.
Well, we actually have a recommendation from the Code Subcommittee.
Okay.
Mr. Brownlee isn't here to speak as the dissenting vote, but the final recommendation is to leave it at 4 feet. However, I would like to mention the efforts of the subcommittee. We examined letters from Mr. Gonzalez and the anonymous letter. We looked at our ordinance. We looked over in more detail the Board of Adjustments experience over the last 4.5 years, where they received an average of 2 requests each year. They denied 2 of the 10, and they approved 3 that were contiguous to commercial properties, allowing over 6 feet, which is what is prescribed in the ordinance. The 6 feet is allowed. The resident wanted higher. They approved 1 contiguous to school property, 2 with topography and retaining wall issues, 1 with a child with disability, and 1 as a replacement. We looked at the 3 from the neighboring towns. I spoke with the chief, and had a very quick conversation with the head of the zoning board. We did discuss all of these with a focus on height, locations, and fence design, among other things, but that's what we came out with. Our recommendation is to leave the ordinance except to add 6-foot fences allowable when adjacent to certain types of properties such as school, as Mr. Mittermeier outlined, school district, other schools, playgrounds, I added fields, municipal properties, churches, New Jersey Transit, South Mountain Reservation, Maplewood Country Club, and other incongruent areas. In addition, allow 6 feet in the event of a disabled minor. And then secondly, to allow grandfathering when it was time for replacement of grandfathering, and then at the time of replacement, the 6-foot, I'm sorry, I'm not saying this right. At the time that a fence that is over 4 feet and is not permitted to be over 4 feet, when it needs replacement, it would be allowed to be replaced at the 6-foot level, 5-foot level, whatever it is. Why did we come to this recommendation? Safety, we feel, is actually better. The line of sight and the ability for scaling to get over the fence. The police focused on this, the chief focused on this. We are an open community. This is aesthetically appreciated, and even more, it allows for neighborliness and communication in the event of a safety issue. One other factor is that the code staff will begin an inventory of fences above 4 feet in height, and as I mentioned, these would be grandfathered in at the time of replacement. So we, as a subcommittee, it was a vote of 2 to 1. Mr. Brownlee isn't here, but if you'd like, I can read some of his comments.
So the subcommittee's recommendation is essentially status quo.
No.
Well, I mean, 4 foot.
Subcommittee is that it would go to 6 feet under certain conditions.
Right, narrowly defined conditions.
Yes. And,
But I
and
would,
that the grandfathering.
well, that's the part I don't understand. So if you violated the law, to have a 6-foot fence, and the fence needs to be replaced, you can continue to violate the law and have a 6-foot fence.
That, yes, it leaves a question mark in my head too, but
Yeah.
that is,
But that's your recommendation.
that was our recommendation.
But why, that seems to me to be unfair to somebody who
Well, we can.
honored the
I'm
law.
willing to talk about that again.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the synonymous letter that we got
Yeah,
that listed
we didn't.
342
Right,
homes.
we did not,
I mean, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but,
and there's no reasonable way to find out if it is accurate, so.
but let's assume that some number of these is accurate.
Right.
Even half. So potentially we have, and since we don't have any history of people going to the Board of Adjustment for variances, so most of these would be illegal fences.
Yes. Well, we don't know. We really don't know.
Because if they were up before the ordinance.
Don't, you know, it's-
Do we know when the ordinance was passed?
somebody
It should
said
be
my
here,
neighbor
right?
put
ordinance
up,
has been- the
my
ordinance
neighbor
has-
put up a fence over
Fences.
4 feet.
1987?
Yeah, but I mean,
1991?
there's been fencing regulations since there's been a zoning code, right? I don't know when
Yeah.
it's changed to what.
Right.
Well,
Right.
can I ask another sort of related question here? You know, this discussion all began because a citizen contacted us and asked for permission, basically, to put a 6-foot fence in his circumstance. Does the proposal how does the proposal that the subcommittee's making address that person's request? Will he be allowed to?
No,
Okay.
not unless he brings to the board,
He won't be allowed, he wanted to be allowed to do it by right, and we're not suggesting that he be allowed to do it by right.
Correct.
You do not have the power to allow him to do it unless you change the zoning.
I understand that. Yeah, I
Or
understand.
unless we change the zone and he fell into one of these categories that we agreed to.
Yeah, that's
Such as
why
he
I-
was next to a school or something like that.
right, exactly.
Or he puts up a fence that's 6 foot and he gets grandfathered.
See, the difficulty with the grandfathering is because it's the only practicable situation for our department. Doing an inventory will remedy that going forward. I certainly understand the concern about someone needing to replace an illegal quote-unquote fence, being allowed to replace it with another illegal fence. I don't myself agree with that at this point. I just don't.
Right. So if we take an inventory and we find these houses with 6 feet fences and they're sited, they would be given a certain amount of time to take the fence down and put a new fence up?
No, they would be allowed to keep the 6-foot fence. And if they had to replace the fence, then they, under my thinking, they would have to go to 4 feet unless they had a reason to be
Well, how would you do
relieved.
that? Because if the ordinance says you need 4 feet,
Right.
and the inspector goes out there and sees a 6-foot, doesn't that inspector have an obligation to give a warning or a ticket for having a 6-foot fence?
But
Well,
it's not
but
practical.
I'm asking my colleagues who are on the
Could we
committee.
not, but it seems, I think the thought was not to just do an umbrella grandfather, though. I thought what we were going to do was grandfather those who could show that they had a variance or they were in those zones. Because
Well-
either way, we have to inventory. So if we're going to inventory, it seems to me that I thought we were going to grandfather
We're gonna go-
those people who can prove that they had a variance or were in the new zones.
Right, well, let's say, the people who have a variance, there's no problem with that.
There's no
right?
problem with
That's
that.
not an issue. So, when you say the people in the new zones, you're talking about this exclusion, so this would be schools, playgrounds, municipal
Right.
facilities. Okay, so let's say that a certain, we were to pass those exclusions and a certain percentage would meet those exclusions, so they'd be grandfathered in. That's
They'd
what
be
you're saying, right?
grandfathered in.
Okay, so what happens to the ones that don't?
They're illegal and
They're
have to be
illegal
torn
and they
down,
should have to come down.
Right.
or we,
That-
Is that what
wasn't
we're
the
gonna,
recomm-
is that what we're gonna do?
That wasn't the recommendation, but that's fine. You know, I was just bringing the recommendation. The recommendation in terms of that was grandfather in if we go to 6 feet, if the township committee goes to 6 feet.
well, if the township committee goes to 6 feet and the fences that are illegal are legal, then it's not an issue.
Right.
Well, some people
And-
might say you shouldn't have had it, but,
Well, I mean,
right, I know.
But if you have a 6-foot fence
We
and
go to
you're
4.
being told it has to come down, we're forcing people, it could be a perfectly good fence, and we're forcing people to take those down.
And
put
they
in-
just spent a couple of $1,000s, and
Right.
in fact, it's going to cost to take it down.
Right.
I guess my answer to that is, if I break the law and I spend a lot of money to break the law, are the people who enforce the law under obligation me from losing money? I don't know that they are.
Mrs. Larry is wise. Been here for years.
No, listen, you may be absolutely right, but people are going to complain. And I think the other thing is that you may end up with people just not replacing their fences. They're going to leave it up.
Well, at some point, if the fence is dangerous, they would give a
No,
citation.
I mean, if somebody
to
has an
replace it.
illegal fence and you write them a violation, they're going
Right.
to get cited, they're going to have to pay
They're going to pay a
fines.
ticket. It's cheaper to pay a ticket than to take the fence down and replace it.
Oh,
But every day is a violation.
Yeah, but we're not going to give a
it's a
ticket for
game.
every day.
It's a game.
It's not,
I mean,
You know.
I don't want to suggest, I don't think we should be suggesting to people that they could pay a ticket and then keep an illegal fence
Oh,
up.
right, that's a game.
No more than they could keep an illegal border in a property because they get one ticket. So I think,
Right.
you know,
well, I mean, listen, some people may do a cost-benefit analysis and may decide on the odds of it, right? But I just want to be clear about what's being proposed by the committee. So I understand the exemptions, that's easy. I didn't understand the grandfathering, because how do you grandfather something that's illegal? Unless you,
Cannot.
right,
Well, that's very simple. You cannot.
there's equal protection issues. It really
Right.
doesn't work.
Right.
You just can't do it.
Also, if I have an illegal fence that I deem that I absolutely need, there is a zoning board of adjustment that I can go before
That's
and
correct.
try and make a case for
And
it.
generally speaking, the code enforcement people will grant them a stay pending their application before the Board of Adjustment.
We're not saying that there's no recourse. You do have,
Right. And the allowance of 6-foot fences in the adjacent communities didn't sway you at all?
no.
Mr. Ryan, where are you in all this?
I don't know, Mayor. There's a lot of information here swirling around, and I'm not, I hope you're not pushing me to make a decision right now,
No, not.
because I'm not really
I
sure.
want to know if you had a decision. so
No,
you
I'd
don't.
like a little more
All right.
time to think about it.
All right.
I'm not,
Let's put this on, can I suggest something that, maybe we have Mr. Desiderio look at these exclusions to see if they pass muster?
Okay, and I added churches and other
Well,
schools.
whatever, if you could give it to him.
I'll give it to you.
I do not have that memo.
Right.
No,
Okay, yes, I certainly.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, one thing I would suggest is, I mean, this, you know, I've actually gotten a lot of verbal comments about the 6-foot fence. Mr. Gonzalez was the person who put it into a letter, but
okay.
he is also on a, well, I guess the one question I would have, is there any reason to include properties that border another town?
That would be the, I think that would come under, sometimes.
they're transitional lots.
And,
No,
no, they're not. Do
Your
they?
backyard borders
Yeah.
Newark or Irvington or
I think that
Union?
makes you a transitional lot. I think that's the definition of a transitional lot.
No.
All right, so, other incongruent uses.
What does that mean? That's a Mr. Desiderio's, that's...
You're not gonna
no.
put it in?
No way.
Okay. All right, so, I don't know what, beyond these exceptions, what bordering another town, why that would occasion a 6-foot fence.
Well, one reason is because the other town may not have as high a standard of zoning enforcement as we do. And there's a reason to have a physical and visual
Visual
barrier.
barrier.
You know, we don't allow cars to be parked in the backyard without plates. Other towns don't. I mean, other towns allow that.
I just looked up transitional lot. It's a transitional lot if it's a business zone in the next town. Bless you.
Okay?
I'm getting all choked up about this. Okay.
You feel a
So,
little
may I
fenced in on
suggest
this?
something?
So,
We-
Are you
yes.
feeling a little fenced in on this issue, Mayor?
Yeah. That we maybe share the information with Mr. Desiderio,
Yes.
and you speak to him about, what can be done with the kind of language you're talking about and some of the issues that came up here. Okay?
Yes.
Then we can bring it back. We don't necessarily have to bring it back at the next meeting, but when you're ready to bring it back, you can give us a heads up.
I can probably do this by email. And Mr. Brownlee will be here also to talk
Okay.
his concerns.
I mean, if it's ready to come back next meeting, that's fine, but we
Yeah.
don't have to have it back.
Got it.
Okay? All right, Mr. Manning, best practices.
Yes, every year, or for the last several years, the state has required us to fill out a survey about comparing ourselves to a list of best practices. I've filled the survey out with the help of Mr. Fresalone. I've given you all a copy of it, and I have published it on the township's website. And basically, you have to get a certain amount of points, which we did reach, in order to get your full state aid for the year. So we will be getting our full state aid for the year, but I think it's very interesting to see how we compare, and we're doing very well in terms of the benchmarking and the best practices that the state puts forward for us to achieve. And it had to be brought up at a public meeting so that the clerk can certify when we send it down that it has been, that it was mentioned or discussed or brought up at a
Do
public
we
meeting.
need, would a resolution accepting the report help?
That, sure, through motion,
Yeah, a motion.
would be
So
fine.
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? This is great, Mr. Manning.
Thank you.
Done a lot of stuff, so it's good. Actually, in some of these items, we're above the standard.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so it's been moved and second a motion to accept the best practice inventory and recognize our review of it.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes?
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to skip these next two items.
Maple Crest Park security cameras, Mr. Manning?
Yes, there was a request from the chief of police who met with residents and people who use Maple Crest Park at a meeting who requested that security cameras be placed in the park. We have a request for 3 cameras at $5,000 each. We're asking that the Open Space Trust Fund fund this $15,000 appropriation and that we can move forward. There is funding available in the Open Space Trust Fund, and it is in a park, and it is to increase security, etc. So we're asking if you would consider that and by motion approve it, and we can memorialize it. Is that correct, Mr. Desder?
Okay.
I'd also like to say, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, did you first?
Mr. Ryan first and then Ms. Leventhal. Go ahead.
Why are we using Open Space Trust Fund money for this?
Because it's in a park and it enhances the security.
Leventhal.
It's been previously used.
Yes, and we've done it before.
That's what you want to say? Oh, anything else? Could we get a motion to allocate $15,000 for the Maple Crest Park security cameras from the Open Space Trust Fund?
So moved. Second?
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay. Regional Communications Grant. Mr. Manning.
Yes, the fire chief has been working with the fire departments of Orange and Irvington, whom share communications systems with response systems through REMS, on a grant to obtain funding to go to this narrow banding. We've been briefed on this through the police department, well, also in the fire department, they have to go to narrow banding radios, and that's going to cost about $200,000. The grant would allow us to put up 15%, and the rest would be paid by the grant. So the chief, before he moves forward to work with Irvington, and by working with Irvington and Orange, we have a better chance because it's a larger, amount of people that are covered by this. The chief, Dingelstadt, has asked that you at least preliminarily agree that if we should get the grant, that we would provide the 15% match funding, because they need that to move that forward.
Leventhal.
We already, I know we had the REMS with Irvington. Orange has been added to that?
Well, Orange separately,
their
they're,
own. Okay.
yeah, yes.
Okay, got it.
Radio
Yeah,
frequency use has to be coordinated with all these people anyway. It makes great sense to do this.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. There's no reason to oppose it.
Because it does allow us to go to any of those towns, and we do go to Irvington, or they sometimes come here, and we will
And
be able to be
Orange,
on the
too.
same radio frequency as they are without having to change radios and et cetera.
There would be a copay.
Pardon?
There would be a
15% match,
That's
right,
30,000.
which would be about $30,000, which you would do in a capital program, and it is in his capital request for next year.
What are the ongoing costs, if any, like the second, third, fifth year?
Well, once you get the cameras, once you get the radios, you would have to do radio maintenance. They last a certain amount of time. Eventually, they would have to be replaced, but you will have the equipment. This was the hardware. Yeah, the actual radios themselves and in the cars. And
Which we have anyway.
You got to change everything.
Yeah, it has a lifespan. Right. But maintenance is the main thing that you have to do. You get a contract.
Let's get a motion, if we can, to instruct Mr. Manning to move forward with this.
So moved.
Second?
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. The motion on the consent agenda?
Chair, I move for adoption of the items on the consent agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We're now at our second public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee? Please come on up and give us your name and address and share your comments with us.
Good evening. Gwendold Pierre Lewis, 224 Elmwood Avenue. I had set a motion before you get out, if you have a copy of it, in regard to a situation that we have around the neighborhood 224, 226 Elmwood Avenue.
Right.
And
Did
I
get
also,
the letter. We got the
yeah,
letter.
I also have pictures of the situation that we're dealing with every day, if you guys want to take a look at it.
Yes, you know, if you could give the pictures to Mr. Manning. You didn't give us a contact. You didn't give us any contact information on the
Oh, I
letter.
did not- I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I went there a couple times and didn't see the buses.
Okay, so that's...
So it's helpful to have the pictures and we can talk about it at
Okay.
public safety. We did mention it, that it was a concern, and we can go back and really take a look at this. This is not overnight, this is daytime, right?
Excuse me?
This is daytime parking?
Daytime parking,
Daytime,
yeah,
right? It's
daytime
not
parking.
overnight. We solved the overnight parking, right?
Okay. The overnight parking is kind of getting better, but there's still improvement need to be made, so...
Okay, so we can revisit that, but this is,
Yes.
as I understand, this is daytime parking of
Daytime
buses
parking.
and vans.
Yes.
In your taxis in your neighborhood.
Yes.
And these are folks not from Maplewood?
No, not resident of Maplewood. Those are people that live in Irvington. The fact that we're so close, the boundary between Irvington and Maplewood where I
Right.
am, and everybody's been affected by it. And, it's a situation, there's an ongoing situation, and we really would like at least, if it's not permanently, they can park permanently, at least a 2 hours parking where at least if they know they can't leave it there all day, so the situation might be a lot easier. That's why I took this picture, to show you guys the situation that we're dealing with every day.
Right.
Because,
And the times when this occurs, do you have a sense, is it morning?
yes, around between, they will park from like 8 in the morning to like 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
They just park it there?
Yeah, they just leave everything there, go by the business, and we have to deal with it, and we have
So
to
this
deal
is
with
someone who might take a bus in the morning to take, like a school bus?
school bus, yellow taxis. I mean, some of the guys that work at night, so due to the fact Irvington had a newly ordinance that they can't park in the state of Irvington during the daytime hours. So, because they will get a ticket, so everybody that has a cab that work night or everybody that has buses, they just, okay, let's go to the Maplewood side and leave it there. We will have to deal with it.
Okay. We will be on it. It's helpful to have the pictures. Now, you know, because we've had these conversations before, Pierre, that whatever ordinance we put in place affects the residents too.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's 2-hour parking, that means the residents
Oh
can't
yeah, we
park.
discussed it. I mean,
Okay.
even some of us, they say like, we thought that was like from people that live in the town, so we were not complaining about it. So when we came to find out that was a situation due to the fact Irvington, they can't park buses and taxis during the day, so we're like, oh, okay, so we all got together and decided we need to do something about it.
When did that ordinance change in Irvington?
I believe that is something that is recently sometime either at the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year. Because also I had a friend of mine that live in Irvington. She's the one that told me she got a ticket, and I was like, why would you get a ticket? They said they just passed an ordinance where you can't park.
We'll have, Ms. Fritzen will contact the clerk in Irvington. We'll get a copy of the ordinance so that
Yeah, you can
we
do that.
understand the parameters and,
Okay,
because, yeah, if they're passing something that puts the cars on our street, we're gonna have to respond.
okay.
We'll have to put the police there or something, you know.
All right, I appreciate it. And also, I would like also
Yeah.
to see.
So
the
we'll
overnight
handle
parking
this
get
at the
better
Public Safety Committee meeting,
and
and we'll,
much more police presence in the boundary. Like, we had at the town line, when you get robbed in front of your house, it's nothing funny. So we would like to see a little more security into it.
Okay.
We know they can be everywhere at every time, but,
all right,
getting.
Mayor?
we got you, thank you, yes.
Yes, our Public Safety Committee meeting is on November the 6th, and our Planning and Engineering is the following day on the 7th, so that's when they'll be brought up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thanks.
it.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Anyone else? No one else? We'll close the second public comment period. We have no reports from departments, administrative reports. Mr. Desiderio.
Mayor, I don't have a report, other than to ask you whether you want to report.
I don't know if your mic is live.
Can't hear you.
Did you want to just push that, Roger, the button?
Other than to ask you whether you're going to report on the post office lease extension, are you going to discuss that? That we're extending it through January?
We already voted on that.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Then I have no report.
Okay. Ms. Fritzen?
Okay, we'll be accepting, anybody wanted to run down and do a voter registration, another 12 minutes or so, to vote in the November election. And the mayor said at the beginning of the meeting about the hours for the polls tomorrow are a standard polling locations and hours from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the special Senate election. I had worked up a little bit of a comparison of some towns that do filming, and I distributed that for your information. I think the mayor and I had spoken about it. We were doing a lot of filming in Maplewood, weekly, bi-weekly, just we've had a lot. It's all gone very, very smoothly, but I think we wanted to figure out where we're at in comparison to other towns. Are we charging too much? Are we charging too little? Everyone, of course, thinks, if you're a film company, that we're charging too much. But if you look at the spreadsheet, you can see that we are certainly charging too little.
Okay,
or-
we'll have that discussion. We'll also look at the procedures.
Right. Well, we've certainly relaxed it from our other discussions when filmmakers and film companies said that 7 days was too much time for them to submit, and we've really relaxed that to 2, 3, 4 days. So I don't think that's an issue anymore. And then my other thing is, next Tuesday night, we have our volunteer appreciation dinner at Maplewood Community Center from 6 till 8. And if you're a volunteer in town at either any of our boards, committees, service organizations, we'd love to have you. And we have a pretty good response so far, and Township Committee will be there to honor our volunteers.
Ms. Fritzen, could you send each of the Township Committee members just a boilerplate invite, and then we'll take responsibility to share it with all of our, all the committees that we have that we're liaisons to?
Sure.
And just urging people to come.
Sure.
That's what time?
6 till 8 next Tuesday.
Okay.
And I'll just, we did a lot of email invites as well as mail invites, but just send you the invitation itself and the response sheet, and we emailed all the groups.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Manning, we passed you by.
Oh.
Was it worth it to come back?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
A couple of few items. First one is a request by the PBA Local 44 and the PBA Local 44A to extend the list for lieutenants and sergeants for 180 days due to the upcoming retirement of Captain John Perna and the need to fill spaces, and we have less than 90 days to go on the existing list. So, and would it be possible to have a motion?
Sure.
I move that we extend the lifetime of the list 180 days as suggested.
Second?
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes?
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
I wanted to let people know that we have that the library is hosting Affordable Care Act Health Insurance Marketplace Navigators, and they are coming to the library with information about the Affordable Health Care Act, who can get it, you know, what are the requirements, how to do it, etc. And it's on our website. I misplaced that piece of paper. But anyway, it's coming up in October. There's about 4 sessions that will come up. You can check at the library. You can check on our website, www.maplewoodnj.org.
Mr. Manning, just one correction there. This was organized by the health department, not the library. It's just being housed at the library. Right?
Okay, then I stand corrected.
Is that right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. We want to get, because I just think, yeah, Mr. Rowe really took this seriously, so.
Okay, and it is going to be at the Maplewood Library, 51 Baker Street, in the Duran Room, starting at 10 a.m. on Friday, October 18th, Friday, November 15th, and Friday, December 6th. And we encourage people to go down, learn information, and get signed up if they are eligible. And farmers market, it's almost the end of the farmers market season. They're open 2 to 7 every Monday. The last day it's going to be open is October the 28th, so that'll be the last Monday that it's open. It's at Indiana and Springfield Avenue in the Indiana parking lot. And lastly, I wanted people to know that Mr. Fresalone did come through his operation last night. However, he's had to have a second operation today, so he is, so just remember him in your prayers if you can. Thanks. It, unless you have questions.
No questions. Thank you. Reports from elected officials. Mrs. Larrier.
No report, sir.
Mr. Ryan.
Just wanted to report briefly that the planning board met this morning to discuss and to adopt an amendment to the master plan's historic preservation element, reflecting the work, the end of the process that the Historic Preservation Commission has been going through to do a study of the Maplewood Center area. Maplewood Center is now the 6th place in town that has been studied, and the result of the study is reflected in the master plan, which was amended this morning by a unanimous vote, and I think a copy of the adopting resolution is in your mail. If you're interested in taking a look at the actual report, it's in a binder that's about this thick, but it's quite interesting, and there's a one-page summary in the master plan, and that's all I have there.
Ms. Leventhal.
Just to remind people that Maplewood will be on HGTV on October 27th. This is Cousins Uncovered, and that's at 8 p.m. on Sunday night. Thank you.
And I have no report. We get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll adjourn our meeting. We'll meet again here on Monday, November 4th. We're meeting the Monday before Election Day. So Monday, November 4th at 7:30 p.m. with a 7 o'clock closed session. Thank you very much.